The stars had always been silent. For thousands of years, humanity looked up at the night sky and wondered if they were alone. They built telescopes. They sent radio signals into the darkness. They dreamed of meeting other beings who lived among those distant lights. On a cold morning in December, they got their answer. Admiral Yuna stood in the command center of Earth Defense Headquarters. The massive screens in front of her showed something that made her blood run cold. Hundreds of ships had appeared near the moon. They were huge. Each one was bigger than any city on Earth. They blocked out the stars behind them like a wall of metal and death. "How many?" Yuna asked. Her voice was calm, but her hands were shaking. 412 ships, Admiral, said Lieutenant Minji. The young woman's face was pale. They came out of nowhere. Our sensors didn't detect anything until they were already here. Yuna nodded slowly. She had spent her whole life preparing for war. She had trained for every possible enemy. But she had never trained for this. No one had. The main screen flickered. A face appeared. It was not human. The creature had gray skin that looked like stone. Its eyes were solid black, like pools of ink. When it spoke, its voice was deep and harsh. "Primitive beings of Earth," the creature said. "I am High Commander Vorn of the Velaran Empire. We have conquered 1,000 worlds. We have destroyed species older than your entire civilization. Today, we give you a choice." Yuna stepped forward. Every person in the room was watching her. She could feel their fear. She could feel her own fear too. But she did not let it show on her face. "What choice?" she asked. Vorn made a sound that might have been a laugh. "You will bow before the Empire. You will give us your planet. You will give us your people. Your strongest will serve us as soldiers. Your smartest will serve us as workers. The rest will be processed. And if we refuse?" Vorn's black eyes seemed to grow darker. "Then we will burn your world until nothing remains but ash. We will kill every man, woman, and child. We will destroy every building, every tree, every animal. When we are done, it will be as if humanity never existed." The screen showed images of other planets. Beautiful worlds with blue oceans and green lands. Then the images changed. The same worlds were shown burning. Cities melted. Oceans boiled away. Nothing was left but dead. Black rock. "This is what happens to those who refuse," Vorn said. "You have 72 hours to decide. Use them wisely." The screen went dark. For a long moment, no one spoke. The command center was silent, except for the soft hum of machines. Yuna could hear her own heartbeat pounding in her ears. "Admiral," Minji said quietly. "What do we do?" Yuna turned to look at her team. These were the best people Earth had. Scientists, soldiers, leaders. They had dedicated their lives to protecting humanity. Now they all looked at her with fear in their eyes. She thought about her family. Her mother lived in a small village by the sea. Her brother worked as a teacher in Seoul. Her niece was only 5 years old. If she made the wrong choice, they would all die. But Yuna also thought about what life would be like under the Velaran. Humans turned into slaves. Children taken from their parents. Everything that made life worth living, destroyed. "Get me Commander Tay," she said. 10 minutes later, a tall man walked into the room. Commander Tay was older than Yuna. His hair was gray, and his face was covered with scars from old battles. He moved slowly, like a man who was tired of fighting, but his eyes were sharp and alert. "You saw the transmission?" Yuna asked. Tay nodded. "The whole world saw it. There's panic in every city. People are scared. They should be scared." Yuna walked to a window and looked up at the sky. Even in daylight, she could imagine those ships waiting up there. "But being scared doesn't mean we give up." Tay raised an eyebrow. "You want to fight?" "I want to survive." Yuna turned back to face him. "And I don't think surrendering will help us survive. You heard what they said. They've conquered 1,000 worlds. Do you think any of those worlds surrendered peacefully and were treated well?" "No," Tay said. "I don't think so." "Neither do I." Yuna's voice grew harder. They're bullies. They're used to weak species who give up without a fight. They expect us to be afraid. They expect us to bow. But we won't. No, we won't. Yuna walked to a secure terminal and entered a long code. The screen changed, showing files that very few people knew existed. It's time to activate Protocol Ember. Tay's eyes widened. Protocol Ember? That's the last resort. It's meant for situations where we have no other choice. Look outside, Commander. Look at those ships. Tell me we have another choice. Tay was silent for a moment. Then he nodded slowly. What do you need me to do? Everything, Yuna said. We have 72 hours. That's not much time. But it's enough. She started giving orders. Messages were sent to secret bases around the world. Hidden weapons were brought online. Ships that the public thought were just research vessels were loaded with weapons they had never seen. Humanity had always known that danger might come from the stars. They had hoped it wouldn't. They had prayed for peace. But they had also prepared for war. Quietly. Secretly. For decades, the Velarand thought they were dealing with a primitive species. They thought Earth was just another weak world that would fall easily. They were wrong. Yuna looked at the clock. 72 hours. 3 days to prepare for the most important battle in human history. She smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had accepted their fate and was ready to face it. They want us to bow, she said quietly. Let's show them what happens when humans refuse to kneel. The war for Earth had begun. While the world fell into panic, humanity's true defenders worked in silence. Deep beneath a mountain in the middle of a desert, Engineer Hana sat at her control station. She had not slept in 30 hours. Her eyes were red and tired, but her fingers moved across the keyboard without stopping. Around her, dozens of other engineers worked just as hard. Status report, she called out. Orbital Station 7 is online, someone answered. Weapons charged and ready. Station 12 is having power problems. We're fixing it now. Station 20 is fully operational. Hana nodded and kept working. The orbital stations had been built over many years. The public thought they were just weather satellites and research platforms. Only a few hundred people in the world knew the truth. Each station was a weapon. Together, they formed a net of destruction around Earth. But the stations had never been used. Many of them had been turned off for years. Now Hana and her team had to wake them up in less than 3 days. How are we doing on the timeline? She asked. Her assistant, a young man named Day, checked his screen. We're at 60%. If we keep working at this speed, we should have everything ready with about 6 hours to spare. That's not enough cushion, Hana said. We need to work faster. The teams are already working as fast as they can. People are passing out from exhaustion. Hana rubbed her tired eyes. She knew Day was right. But she also knew that if they failed, exhaustion would be the least of their problems. Tell them to take short breaks, she said. 20 minutes of sleep, then back to work. We can rest when this is over. Far above the planet, the Velaran fleet waited. High Commander Vorn sat on his command throne and watched Earth through the main viewer. The blue and green planet looked peaceful. Beautiful. Even. He almost felt sorry for the creatures who lived there. Almost. Any response from the humans? He asked. His second-in-command, a female Velaran named Keth, checked her reports. They have requested more time to consider our offer. Their leaders are meeting to discuss the situation. Vorn made a dismissive sound. They are stalling. It doesn't matter. The result will be the same. They will either bow, or they will burn. Should we prepare for invasion, Commander? Not yet. Let them have their 72 hours. Let them hope. It will make their defeat even sweeter. Keth nodded but said nothing. She had served Vorn for many years. She had seen him destroy entire civilizations without mercy. But something about this mission felt different. She couldn't explain why. Back on Earth, Fleet Captain June was having the same sleepless night as everyone else in the Secret Defense Network. June commanded Earth's hidden fleet. The ships were kept in underground hangars and underwater bases. They were smaller than the Velaran vessels. But they were fast and deadly. Most importantly, the enemy didn't know they existed. "All ships report ready," his lieutenant told him. "Weapons loaded. Crews are in position." Quote, "Good." June studied the tactical display. It showed the position of every Velaran ship around Earth, 412 vessels, just sitting there. Waiting. He had fought in many battles during his career. He had faced enemies who outnumbered him. But this was different. This was everything. If they lost this fight, there would be no tomorrow. No second chances. "Sir," his lieutenant said, "I need to ask you something." "Go ahead. Do you think we can win?" June was quiet for a long moment. He thought about lying. He thought about giving some inspiring speech about human courage and determination. But his people deserved the truth. "I don't know," he said. "Our weapons have never been tested against alien technology. We don't know how strong their shields are. We don't know how fast they can respond. We're fighting blind. Then why are we doing this? Why not just surrender?" June turned to look at his lieutenant. The young man's face was pale with fear. He wasn't asking because he wanted to give up. He was asking because he needed a reason to keep going. "Because surrendering won't save us," June said. "I've studied the reports from their other conquests. The species that surrendered didn't live good lives. They were used as slaves until they died. Their children were taken and turned into soldiers for the Empire. Their culture, their history, everything that made them who they were, it was all destroyed. So we're fighting because death is better than that." "No." June shook his head. "We're fighting because there's a chance. A small chance, maybe. But it's there. And as long as there's a chance, we have to try." On the other side of the world, Admiral Yuna was meeting with Earth's other leaders, presidents, prime ministers, generals, and scientists all gathered in a secure room deep underground. "We've received their demands," Yuna said. "Surrender or die. Those are our only options according to them." "Then we must surrender," one of the politicians said. "We can't fight ships like those. Our weapons are nothing compared to theirs." "How do you know that?" Yuna asked. "Have you seen our weapons? Have you seen what humanity has been building in secret for the last 50 years? The room went quiet. Most of the people there had never heard about the secret defense programs. They knew about normal military forces, armies, navies, air forces. They didn't know about Protocol Ember. "We have been preparing for this day for a long time," Yuna continued. "Not because we wanted war, but because we knew that someday, something might come from the stars. And we wanted to be ready." She activated a display. It showed the orbital stations, the hidden fleet, the weapons buried on the Moon and Mars. It showed years of secret work by thousands of dedicated people. "This is our answer to their ultimatum," Yuna said. "This is what humanity can do when we work together." One of the generals leaned forward. "Even with all this, can we win?" Yuna met his eyes. "Maybe. Maybe not. But I'd rather die fighting than live as a slave. And I think most of humanity feels the same way." The room voted. It wasn't unanimous, but it was close. Earth would fight. As the hours passed, the preparations continued. Hana got her stations online. June moved his fleet into position. Soldiers around the world said goodbye to their families, not knowing if they would ever see them again. The Velaran watched it all with amusement. They saw the panic. They saw the fear. They thought they knew what was coming. They were wrong. High above Earth, Vorn counted down the hours. Soon, he thought. Soon, these primitives would learn their place. They would bow, or they would burn. He never imagined a third option. The 72 hours were almost over. Admiral Yuna stood in the command center, watching the clock count down. Around her, every screen showed different parts of the defense network. Orbital stations glowing with power. Hidden fleets waiting in darkness. Soldiers ready at their posts around the world. 5 minutes until the deadline, Lieutenant Minji said. Yuna nodded. Her heart was beating fast, but she kept her face calm. Everyone was watching her. She had to be strong for them. Open a channel to the Valoran flagship, she said. The main screen flickered. High Commander Vorn appeared. His stone-gray face showed no emotion, but his black eyes seemed to glow with anticipation. Admiral Yuna, he said, your time is up. Have you made your decision? Yuna looked at the alien commander. He was so confident, so sure that he had already won. She had seen that look before, on the faces of bullies and tyrants throughout human history. It was the look of someone who had never been truly challenged. We have made our decision, Yuna said. Her voice was steady. The answer is no. Vorn tilted his head. No? You refuse to bow? We refuse. Yuna stepped closer to the screen. Humanity does not kneel. We never have. We never will. Then you have chosen death. Vorn's voice was cold. Your planet will burn. Your people will scream. And when it is over, nothing will remain of your species but ash. Maybe. Yuna allowed herself a small smile. But you'll have to earn it. Vorn made a sound of disgust. Earn it? You are insects. Your weapons are toys. Your ships are garbage. What can you possibly do against the Valoran Empire? I guess you'll find out. Yuna cut the transmission. The screen went dark. For a moment, there was silence in the command center. Then Minji spoke. Admiral, the Valoran fleet is moving. They're powering weapons. Yuna took a deep breath. This was it. The moment everything changed. All stations, she said into her communicator. This is Admiral Yuna. The enemy has rejected peace. They think we are weak. They think we will fall easily. They are wrong. She paused, looking at the screens showing her forces. Thousands of people, ready to fight and die for their planet. Today, we show the galaxy what humanity is made of. Today, we fight not just for our lives, but for our freedom, for our children, for everything we believe in. Her voice grew stronger. They wanted us to bow. Instead, we will make them burn. She gave the order. All stations, fire at will. Across the solar system, humanity answered. The orbital stations came alive first. Beams of brilliant light shot out from platforms that the Valoran had ignored as primitive technology. Each beam carried enough energy to melt through metal like it was butter. The first Valoran ship didn't even have time to raise its shields. The beam cut through its hull, and the vessel exploded in a ball of fire. Debris scattered in all directions. On the Valoran flagship, alarms started screaming. What was that? Vorn demanded. Where did that come from? Keth checked her screens. Her face had gone pale. The orbital platforms. Commander. They're armed. They're all armed. That's impossible. Our scans showed no weapons. They were hidden, shielded somehow. Another explosion lit up the view screen. We've lost 12 ships already. Vorn stared at the chaos in disbelief. This wasn't supposed to happen. Primitive species didn't fight back like this. They cowered. They begged. They surrendered. All ships, return fire, he shouted. Destroy those platforms. The Valoran fleet finally responded. Massive cannons turned toward Earth, firing bolts of purple energy at the orbital stations. Some stations were hit and destroyed, but there were so many of them, and more kept appearing. Where are they all coming from? Keth asked. The answer came from the dark side of the moon. Hidden bases that had been silent for years suddenly activated. Missiles launched toward the Valoran fleet, each one carrying warheads designed to penetrate alien shields. Commander Tay watched from his own command post as the missiles found their targets. Direct hits on 47 enemy vessels, his officer reported. Their shields are failing faster than expected. Tay allowed himself a grim smile. Years of secret research had paid off. Human scientists had studied every piece of alien technology they could find. They had learned how Valoran shields worked. They had designed weapons specifically to break through them. Launch the second wave, Tay ordered. In space, the battle raged. Velaran ships exploded one after another. But the aliens weren't helpless. Their return fire destroyed orbital stations. Their heavy weapons burned holes through Earth's defenses. "We're losing stations faster than expected," Minji reported. "At this rate, we'll be out of orbital weapons in 2 hours. Then we need to end this in less than 2 hours," Yuna said. "Signal Captain June. Tell him it's time." Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, June received the message. He turned to his crew with a fierce look in his eyes. "You heard the Admiral," he said. "All ships, prepare to surface and engage." The ocean began to boil as dozens of ships rose from their underwater hangars. They were sleek and fast, designed for one purpose: to kill Velaran vessels. Their engines roared as they shot toward space. On the flagship, Vorn watched the new ships appear with growing horror. "How many forces do these humans have?" he demanded. No one could answer him. No one knew. The humans had hidden their true strength so well that even the Valorans' advanced sensors hadn't detected it. "Commander," Keth said quietly, "we should consider retreat. We've lost over 100 ships already. If this continues..." "No," Vorn slammed his fist against his throne. "We do not retreat. We are the Velaran Empire. We have conquered 1,000 worlds. But these humans are not like the others, Commander. They fight differently. They planned for this." Vorn stared at the battle raging outside his window. Ships were dying on both sides now. The sky was filled with fire and debris. It was chaos. For the first time in his long career, High Commander Vorn felt something he had never felt before: fear. Back on Earth, Yuna watched the same battle. Her forces were taking heavy losses. Good people were dying every second. But so were the Velaran. "Status report," she demanded. "Enemy fleet is down to 280 ships," Minji said. "Our orbital stations are at 40%. Captain June's fleet has engaged and is pressing the attack. 280 ships. Still too many. But it was progress." "We're hurting them," Yuna said. "Keep pushing. Don't let up." The battle for Earth continued. In space, humans and Velaran killed each other in the cold darkness. On the planet below, billions of people watched the sky and prayed. The Empire had come for Earth. They had demanded that humanity bow. Instead, they found a war. The battle had lasted for 6 hours. Commander Tay's hands were covered in blood. Not his own, the blood of a young soldier he had tried to save when their position was hit. The soldier hadn't made it. None of the people in that section had made it. But Tay kept fighting. They all did. "Status," he called out, his voice rough from hours of shouting orders. "We've destroyed 192 enemy vessels," his officer reported. "But our losses are heavy. 60% of orbital stations are gone. Captain June's fleet is down to half strength." Tay looked at the tactical display. The Velaran fleet was smaller now, but it was still deadly. 220 ships remained. Each one was packed with weapons that could level cities. "They're regrouping," the officer continued. "It looks like they're preparing for a focused attack on Earth's surface." Tay's blood went cold. Direct bombardment. If those ships fired on Earth's cities, millions would die in minutes. "Get me Admiral Yuna," he ordered. In the command center, Yuna received the same news. Her face was pale, but her eyes were hard. "Can we stop them?" she asked. "Not all of them," Tay said through the communication link. "We don't have enough firepower left. Some of them will get through." Yuna closed her eyes for a moment. She thought about all the people who would die. Families. Children. People who had nothing to do with this war but would pay the price anyway. Then she opened her eyes. "What about the special weapons?" Tay was silent for a moment. "You mean Project Dawn?" "Yes. Project Dawn was humanity's darkest secret. Not even most of the military knew about it. The weapons had been built as a last resort, designed to be used only if everything else failed. Using them will cause massive damage," Tay said. "Not just to the enemy. The radiation alone." "I know." Yuna's voice was steady. "But if we don't use them, the Velaran will destroy everything anyway. At least this way, we have a chance." Tay nodded slowly. "I'll give the order." Deep in space, hidden among the debris of destroyed ships, a small group of missiles activated. They were different from the others, larger, more deadly. Each one contained a weapon that could crack a planet's crust. High Commander Vorn didn't notice them. He was too busy preparing his attack on Earth. All ships, target the largest population centers, he commanded. We'll kill billions in the first strike. The survivors will beg to surrender. Keth watched him with growing unease. They had already lost almost half their fleet. The humans had fought harder than anyone expected. And still, Vorn wanted more destruction. Commander, she said carefully, perhaps we should reconsider. These humans are clearly more dangerous than we thought. If we continue this attack— Silence. Vorn's face twisted with rage. I will not be defeated by primitives. I will not be remembered as the commander who lost to insects. He turned to the weapons officer. Fire. The remaining Velaran ships opened fire on Earth. Beams of purple energy shot toward the planet, each one aimed at a major city. If they hit, millions would die, but they never reached their targets. The Project Dawn missiles arrived first. The explosions were unlike anything the Velaran had ever seen. Pure white light erupted from the missiles, expanding in all directions. The energy tore through Velaran shields like they weren't even there. Ships that were caught in the blast simply disappeared, turned to atoms in an instant. Vorn watched in horror as 60 of his ships vanished in seconds. What was that? He whispered. Unknown weapon type, Keth reported. Her voice was shaking. Our shields had no effect. Commander, we need to retreat. Now. For once, Vorn didn't argue. His pride meant nothing if he was dead. All ships, fall back, he ordered. Get us out of here. But the humans weren't done. Captain June led what remained of his fleet in a final attack. His ships were damaged, his crews exhausted. But they could smell victory. The Valoran were running. Don't let them escape, June shouted. Every ship that gets away is a ship that might come back. His vessels chased the retreating Velaran, firing everything they had. More alien ships exploded. More enemy soldiers died. On Earth, people watched the sky with tears in their eyes. The purple beams had stopped. The enemy was retreating. For the first time in days, there was hope. In the command center, Admiral Yuna allowed herself to breathe. How many enemy ships are left? She asked. 97, Minji said. They're running. Their flagship is leading the retreat. 97 ships. Out of 412, the humans had destroyed over 300 Velaran vessels in a single battle. Pursue them to the edge of the solar system, Yuna ordered. Make sure they don't stop running. On the Velaran flagship, chaos had taken over. Officers ran back and forth, trying to manage the retreat. Wounded soldiers screamed in the medical bays. The ship itself was damaged, trailing smoke and fire. Vorn sat on his throne, staring at nothing. His mind couldn't process what had happened. He had commanded invasions of dozens of worlds. He had never lost. Never even come close to losing. And now, more than 300 of his ships were gone. Thousands of his soldiers were dead. His fleet had been broken by a species he had called insects. Commander, Keth said, we're clear of the solar system. The humans have stopped pursuit. Vorn didn't respond. Commander? I heard you. His voice was hollow, empty. Set course for Velaran space. We need to report. We need to report what happened. What will you tell them? Vorn finally looked at her. His eyes, which had once been full of arrogance and cruelty, now showed only shock. I will tell them the truth, he said. The humans are not primitives. They are not insects. They are warriors. And if the Empire wants their planet, it will cost us everything we have. As the Velaran fleet limped away into the darkness of space, they sent warning signals to every corner of their empire. The signals carried a simple message. Stay away from Earth, the humans are dangerous. Back on the blue planet, the fires of battle slowly died down. Debris rained through the atmosphere like falling stars. Some of it was Velaran. Some of it was human. All of it was a reminder of the price that had been paid. Admiral Yuna stood by a window, watching the lights fall from the sky. She should have felt victorious. They had won. Against all odds, humanity had defeated an alien invasion, but all she felt was tired and sad. So many people had died today. Good people who had given everything so that others could live. Admiral, Minji said softly, you should rest. The battle is over. Is it? Yuna asked. Or is this just the beginning? She looked at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Valoran Empire was waiting. They had lost this battle, but they wouldn't forget. They would come back. Maybe not today. Maybe not this year, but someday, and humanity would have to be ready. 3 days after the battle, Earth was still counting its dead. Admiral Yuna walked through a hospital in Seoul. The halls were filled with wounded soldiers and civilians. Doctors and nurses ran from room to room, trying to save as many lives as they could. The smell of medicine and blood hung heavy in the air. How many? She asked the hospital director, a tired woman named Yoonji. In this hospital alone, over 2,000 wounded. Yoonji's voice was flat, exhausted. Across the world, we're looking at millions of casualties. Military and civilian combined. Millions. The number hit Yuna like a punch to the chest. They had won the battle, but the cost had been terrible. The Valoran bombardment killed most of them, Yoonji continued. Before your weapons stopped them, they hit 12 cities. Not direct hits, thank God, but close enough to cause massive damage. Yuna nodded silently. She had seen the reports. Tokyo, London, New York, Cairo. 12 of Earth's greatest cities, scarred by alien weapons. Buildings reduced to rubble, neighborhoods turned to ash, families torn apart. We did everything we could, she said quietly. I know. Unji looked at her with tired eyes. And I know it could have been much worse. But that doesn't make it hurt any less. Outside the hospital, people were gathering in the streets. Not to protest or panic. They were there to help. Volunteers handed out food and water. Others dug through rubble, looking for survivors. Neighbors helped neighbors. Strangers helped strangers. Yuna watched them for a moment. Despite everything that had happened, despite all the death and destruction, humanity was coming together. Not fighting each other, not blaming each other, just helping. Maybe, she thought, that was the real reason they had won. Not because of their weapons or their strategies, but because when things got bad, humans took care of each other. 2 weeks later, the world's leaders gathered in Geneva for a special meeting. The meeting room was full of presidents, prime ministers, and military commanders from every nation. They had come to discuss one thing: what to do now. The Valoran will return, Yuna told them. Not immediately. We hurt them badly, and they need time to recover. But they will come back. And when they do, they'll bring more ships. How many more? One of the leaders asked. Their empire controls 1,000 worlds. They have millions of ships. We destroyed 300. That's nothing to them. The room fell silent. The victory that had felt so important now seemed small. Like winning a battle but losing the war. Then what do we do? Another leader asked. How do we prepare for something like that? Yuna stood up and walked to the front of the room. A screen behind her lit up, showing plans and designs. We build, she said. We learn. We grow stronger. She showed them designs for new ships, bigger and more powerful than anything Earth had ever made. Plans for space stations that could defend the solar system. Weapons that could match anything the Valoran had. For 50 years, we prepared in secret. Yuna continued. A few thousand people, working without anyone knowing. Imagine what we can do when the whole world works together. The discussion lasted for hours. In the end, they agreed. Earth would unite. Not as separate nations, but as one species. One people. Facing the stars together. It wouldn't be easy. There would be arguments and disagreements. Old grudges wouldn't disappear overnight. But the threat from space had changed everything. Humanity finally had a reason to stop fighting each other and start fighting for each other. A month after the battle, A memorial was built on the site of the worst destruction. Thousands of people came to the ceremony. Families of those who had died, soldiers who had survived, leaders who had made the hard choices. They stood together under a gray sky. Remembering, Commander Tay spoke first. His voice was rough with emotion. "We stand here today because of the brave men and women who gave their lives," he said. "Soldiers who flew into battle, knowing they might not come back. Engineers who worked until they collapsed. Ordinary people who refused to give up, even when everything seemed lost." He paused, looking at the faces around him. "They didn't die for nothing. They died so that we could live, so that humanity could survive. We owe them everything." Captain June spoke next. He talked about his crews, the ones who had died and the ones who had lived. He talked about fear and courage, about how even the bravest soldiers had been terrified but had fought anyway. "Being brave doesn't mean you're not afraid," he said. "It means you fight even when you are afraid. That's what our people did. That's what humanity did." Finally, Admiral Yuna stepped forward. She looked out at the crowd, at the monument behind her, at the sky above. "They came to our world and demanded that we bow," she said. "They thought we were weak. They thought we would surrender without a fight. They were wrong." Her voice grew stronger. "We showed them what humans are made of, not just our weapons or our technology. Our spirit, our determination, our refusal to give up. No matter how bad things get." She raised her hand toward the stars. "The universe is watching us now. Other species know what happened here. They know that humanity doesn't bow, doesn't kneel, doesn't surrender. The Valoran may come back, other enemies may appear. But whatever happens, we'll face it together. As one people, one planet, one species." She lowered her hand and looked at the crowd one last time. "The battle for Earth is over, but our journey has just begun. And I believe, with all my heart, that the best of humanity is still ahead of us." The ceremony ended, but the people stayed. They talked to each other. They hugged. They cried. They remembered. That night, Yuna stood alone on a hill outside the city. The memorial was visible in the distance, glowing softly under the lights. Above her, the stars shone bright and clear. Somewhere out there, the Valoran Empire was licking its wounds. Somewhere out there, other alien species were hearing about the battle for Earth. Somewhere out there, the future was waiting. Yuna didn't know what that future would bring. War? Peace? Something in between? She couldn't say. But she knew one thing for certain. Whatever came next, humanity would face it standing tall. They had demanded that Earth bow. Earth had answered with fire, and the galaxy would never forget.